Remember, there are only two objectives: writing linear equations in different formats and parallel and perpendicular lines. So on the first page, are there any questions you want to see Ju go over? Have questions about 1, 2, 3? You can do 3 as well, but we're not doing 4. We're not doing 4. Alright, so for number 1, you need to find the y-intercept. You can put a point on it. You can label it underneath if you want. And you need to find another point that would cross the grid lines exactly. So be careful, because some of them are very close, but some of them are not exactly on the line. So like, another point that would cross exactly would be where the arrows are. What would that slope be? -2/5. So then your equation would be y equals -2 this x plus 1. Again, make sure you're writing this down. So you don't have to write this part to be in the m by itself, but you do need the equation. Right. Number 2, same thing. The y-intercept here is where the arrow is at -5. Find another point that would cross the grid lines exactly. This point would work. What would that slope be? But -8, yes. So our equation y equals -8x minus 5. Number 3. Is your $40. It is a vertical line, so if you need to write this off to the side somewhere so that you remember, okay, horizontal lines have 0 slope or y equals, vertical lines have undefined slope or x equals. So it's a vertical line, this is going to be an x equals, where does this cross the x-axis? -3. Some of them will not have a y equals in it. Go on to the next page. Alright, let's start with 6 through 9. Any questions on those? Okay. You're not going to do 6 and 7. You can do 9. Okay, for 6. You are given the slope, you are given the y-intercept. Put them together in your y equals mx+b. That is all it's asking. For 9, though, you are given a point and you are given a slope, so you have to use your point slope, which I'll write up here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is also somewhere over here in pink. And on this, and on the board. So you have your x1, y1, and your m. And you're going to put each of those into that format. Y minus 0 equals -1/2 times x. You can either put minus minus 4 or just change it to a plus. How you do that is up here. You can only change it to a plus if it was a negative, because it would be minus minus. Right. Distribute, so we have y equals, because this would just become y, -1/2 x minus 2. Do we have any questions about that one? are some more of these examples on the next page, so let's go through those. I also want you to write in this example. On the next page. Through the point -3/2, comma 1, the slope -8/3. We are going to do this one, but first, are there any in 10 through 12 that we want to see you go over? 12. Right. I'll come back to this in a second. I want you to also write this one down. Through 0, -3, and -6/5 and 2. And then other ones, 13 through 17, which of those we want to see you go over? Have fun. Which of these do you want to see you go over? Any others? 14. And then we're doing 3 of those, so that will cover the gist of those. Alright, so let's go back up to the top. Now, here, because we have a slope that's undefined, we cannot use our point slope with this. If it said slope of 0, you could, but you don't have to. You could do exactly what I'm about to do. So if the slope is undefined, that means we're dealing with an x equals. Because we can't use the point slope for this, you're going to look at which of these is your x value and write that as an equation. There's really no work for that one. You have to know how to do that one. If it said slope equals 0, you would do the same thing, but for y. Or you could do the point slope. Either one for that one. You just can't do the work for undefined. For this one, let's go ahead and do our point slope. We have y minus 1 equals -8/3 times x. You can put plus 3/2 or minus, and then would have to change it. When we distribute this, it's not going to be a nice, or it actually might. I may have chosen good numbers. Let's see. So -8/3x, multiply these and tell me what you get. This happens to work out, but sometimes it won't, so you'll end up with fractions as your y-intercepts. Y equals -8/3 x minus 3. Aiden, Evan, make sure you're writing this down. Questions on that so far? Alright, with 14, 16, and the one we have up here, we have to find the slope first, and then do everything else. So, your slope formula, again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Label them if you so choose. So this would be -5, either minus a -4 or +4, you can choose, over 2 minus 4. What would your slope be? So that's your M. And then you can choose either of these points to use your point slope. Do you want to use the first one or the second one? Okay. If you want to choose the first, that's also fine. So this would be y plus 5, because it would be minus minus, equals positive 1/2 x, or times x minus 2. Distribute, so we have y plus 5 equals 1/2 x minus 1. Subtract 5 on both sides. Do we have any questions so far? Similar process for 16. Find the slope. So we have 0 plus 5 or minus 5 over 0 minus 4. What would our slope be? But we would just write it as -5/4 in general. Either with a negative up top or out front. That's your M. Now, you could do the same work, but we are given our y-intercept, so we don't have to do that. Because we're given our y-intercept and now we have our slope, we can just write our equation. Y equals -5/4 x or plus 0. Questions on that one? And then similar process for this last one. Except we have to find our slope and it's going to have fractions in it. So 2 plus 3 or 2 minus a -3 over 6/5 minus 0. So we're going to have the fraction in there. It'll be 5 over 6/5. And then we're going to take that fraction and flip it and multiply on our numerator and denominator. So that this down here cancels. This would really be 5 over 1. So 25/6. Remember that you can also do that in a calculator by doing alpha y equals, doing it again, going all the way down and doing it again. Do we need to solve to find our y-intercept? Are we given our y-intercept?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so no, we don't need to solve to find it. So y equals 25/6 x minus 3 would be our answer. But if that y-intercept was not given, we would have to do the work to find it. So on to the next page. questions on this page? Any other questions on this page? Thank you. Alright, so 19, we need to solve these. If we need to figure out which line would be perpendicular to this, we can find the slope that would be perpendicular. We take that and flip it and make it positive. What would that new slope be? So it would be positive 1/3. So one of our equations has to have that slope. The ones that look like A and C, we're just moving the x over. We're not really dividing by anything. So, except for the negative, which wouldn't change anything. So those two would be out. If I move the x over, it would be negative, and this wouldn't be dividing by a negative. It would make this positive, so it's not going to be B. And then we can do the work to find C to make sure. So subtract x. And divide everything by -3. Which does give us our positive 1/3. Okay. 20, you just have to find the slope that's parallel and perpendicular to each line. So I'll go parallel. The first two are already, well, this one's in slope intercept form. This one is not, but they're just switched. So a slope that's parallel to line A would be what? So we just need the slope. So just 4. I'll put 4 equals m, so we know we're talking about the slope. What would the slope that's parallel? No, let's do the perpendicular. So what would the perpendicular of A be? We take it, flip it, and make it negative. Negative 1/4. The parallel line of line D, or the parallel slope of line D? -2. So as long as you don't put 5, you're good. Because even though it's not in slope intercept form, they're just switched. As long as you know which one would be the slope, that's fine. What would the perpendicular slope be? Positive 1/2. Right. This one we have to solve, divide everything by 2. So that y equals 3/2x minus 4. And then the parallel lines, or the parallel slope to this one would be what? What would the slope that's parallel to this be? What is the slope of this line? 3/2. So the parallel would be 3/2. What would the perpendicular be? -2/3. Okay. For 21, we have to find whether they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Are you about to ask a question? It's supposed to be 4 equals. I was supposed to be ready equals that for all of these. A and 21, we have to solve both of them. Subtract x, we can do this simultaneously. So we have y equals negative x plus 5. And then y equals negative x minus 10. Are those parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Parallel, because they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. Right. B, those are already in slope-intercept form. Are those parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Parallel, again, they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. And then C's equations, we have to solve them both. So subtract 3x. I'm doing them both at the same time. So negative 8y equals negative 3x plus 11. And negative 6y equals negative 3x plus 10. Divide these by negative 8 and the others by negative 6. I'm going to write the equations above. Y equals positive 3/8 x minus 11/8 and y equals 1/2 x minus, divided by 2, 5/3. Are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither? They have completely different slopes. Positive 3/8 and positive 1/2, neither. Right. For 22, this is something where we have to solve the second equation, figure out what the slope is, and then find the slope that would make it perpendicular. So divide these by 2. So what would the value of A have to be if it's perpendicular to what we just have? You have to take this and flip it. And make it negative. I'm going to write A equals instead of M equals. '23 would be very similar. Okay. The next page has very similar questions to the writing that we already did, so we're going to skip that page. And hold on a second. 1, 2, and 3 is number 20. Not 7, 9, 11 is number 21. And then 23, 24 are these two. So we could do 15, 17, 19, or 20, or 24. If we didn't do that one on the next page. So we can do, ignore that it says ignore. We can do any of these 15, 17, 19, 20, or 24 since we did do that one. Questions on any of those? Yes. Any others on this page? So for 20, we have to find an equation of the line that passes through the given point and is perpendicular to the line of the given equation. I'm going to do this work down here because I don't really have space. I'll start it up there and then work my way down. So we have to, one, solve this equation. It says 3x plus 5y equals 7. So get rid of 3x. And divide everything by 5. Remember, with questions like these, you don't need the y-intercept. You can cross that out. Our new equation has to have a perpendicular slope. So what would our new slope be? 5 over 3. Okay, then we're going to use that new slope in our point slope. So y minus 5 equals 5/3 times x minus 2. And then we're going to solve that. We have y minus 5 equals 5/3 x minus, this would be negative 10 over 3. And then in your calculator, add 5 to negative 10 over 3 and tell me what you get. We all did. Okay. So y equals 5/3 x minus 5/3. Actually, I think it's positive because it would be 15 over 3. Go on to the next page. These are all just parallel lines, perpendicular lines, very similar to the last one we just did. Are there any of those questions we want to see, do, go over, have questions about? 6. Can you do 4 too? 4. Alright, so for number 2, we are given an equation, given a point, and we have to find an equation that is parallel to it. So cross out the y-intercept, you don't need it. The slope is going to stay the same since it's parallel. That was supposed to say m. Now we have our m, we have our point, we can use our point slope. So y minus, or plus 1, sorry, minus a negative 1, and then you have to change it, or just y plus 1 equals 1/4 times x minus 4. And then we have y plus 1 equals 1/4 x minus 1. And when we subtract 1 on both sides, we get y equals 1/4 x minus 2. So remember, in this state, those are the easier ones. And then with each step, it gets harder. Number 4, you would need to solve the equation first. Subtract 5x. Divide everything by 2. That doesn't answer your question. That's not the answer to the question. You can cross out your y-intercept. Your slope is going to be the same. I'm going to do the rest of my work off to the side. You may have enough space. I do not. So then we would use our point slope. Y minus 3 equals negative 5 over 2 times x plus 2. Distribute and solve. So y minus 3 equals negative 5 halves x minus 5, and then add 3. So that our equation is y equals negative 5 over 2x minus 2. Questions on either of those two before we go on to 6? With 6, we have to change the slope first. So what would our new slope be? We take that and flip it and make it negative. Negative 4 over 3. You can cross out the y-intercept and then do your point slope. We have y plus 3 equals negative 4 over 3 times x minus 3. Bunch of 3's in that one. Distribute and solve. So y plus 3 equals, I didn't put equals, negative 4/3 x plus 4, and then subtract 3 on both sides, so that y equals negative 4/3 x plus 1. All the questions on the very last page are very similar to this. Are there any others you want to see me go over how questions about? So then, for the remainder of class, you could be working on one of two things. Delta math. If you didn't do them, remember there were 3 that were due on Friday. Oh, that reminds me. I need to do something for you guys. Hold on one second. We need to check Delta math scores. So you could be working on Delta math, the writing linear equations part 1, part 2, and the parallel perpendicular lines, or you can keep working in your study guide. Those are your only 2 options. No phones. Work on those. You want an iPad for Desmos, you can grab one, but not to be used for other things.